Hey gang, Ronan here. Welcome on back to the Retrocade. It's Sunday, which means it's Suckerpunch Sunday. Our chance to go back and explore a classic fighting or fighting platform-based game from the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th generation. And this week, we're going to play a game that is only the 3rd game we've ever profiled for the Nintendo Entertainment System, but it is a port of one of my favorite games of the 1980s, and it is a fighting game which is quintessentially 80s. We're going to play Bad Dudes. Or, if you're from Japan, this game was actually called Dragon Ninja. Or, if you played in the arcades, it was actually listed as Bad Dudes versus Dragon Ninja. This game came out in 1988 in arcades and was ported to the NES by Data East USA in 1989. And I will explain more of the details as we go. But the crux of it is you get two bad dudes that you get to choose from to stage this one-man assault against the Dragon Ninja and his hordes. And we are going to play as Blade, not that there's a real difference between the two. And then we get the classic 80s introduction of which the president has been kidnapped by ninjas. Now, in the arcade version, it was President Ronnie, which is meaning President Ronald Reagan at the time, back in 1988. Are you a bad enough dude to rescue the president? Now, really quick, this is a side-scrolling 2D fighting platform game. And it's really simple. You are a bad dude in a black tank top and sweatpants who has to go and take out ninjas in mass quantities. You have your basic attack button, which is your A button, and then your jump button is your B button. There is a timer. It's not really essential. You do get 3 players per attempt. And as you see, we have a life bar. Now, the graphics in this game, because it was ported from the arcade to an 8-bit NES platform, are diminished compared to playing the actual arcade version, which I genuinely do like to do, going all the way back to playing on the on my MAME emulator. And then it is simply just a matter of pattern recognition and knowing how to hit as many ninjas as you can. Now, the gray ninjas are the ones you have to worry about because they will throw shuriken or ninja stars, whereas the red ninjas are your friends in that they will drop either weapons for you to help fight with, or they will either do that, or they will give you an aid as like more time, or they will give you a health boost. Which I just picked up right there, and that was very helpful. Now, the green ones you really got to worry about because, 1, they have swords, and 2, they require 2 hits to take out as opposed to your regular 1. Same with the gray ninjas. So the blue ones are your run-of-the-mill ninja. And I will warn you right now, you're going to hear me say that word a lot in this playthrough. And this guy will breathe fire at you, which is a take on another Data East video game title called Karnoff. Except in that game, Karnoff, being a flame-throwing circus strongman, is actually a good guy. Oh, and he got me. So just like that, we've already burned through 1 continue. And because there is so much screen flicker in this game between enemies, especially with the gray ninjas, it does make it difficult to know when they're throwing a weapon at you. But everything about this game, when it came out, and I was 11 years old when I started seeing it in my local arcade. I mean, if you tried to make a game like this nowadays, you could. It wouldn't be hard to do, but it would just be... I think the degree of cheese is such that it wouldn't quite fit. That's not to say that they haven't, tried to make similar games like this. I mean, I think, in a totally different vein, a game like Hotline Miami totally makes fun of the 1980s action movie hyper-violence fest that was going on at the time. And with this guy, you just have to stick and move. That's all you really need to worry about. And don't get hit by the fire. Now, when I dispatch him, you will be rewarded by getting what is, without a doubt, the trademark of this game. Right here. I'm bad. I cannot tell you how many times my friends and I, when we were playing this game, and you can play it as a co-op game, which was one of the perks of it back in the 80s. It was one of the true two-player co-op games. Ooh, I do not want to get hit by the wheels. And what Data East did in putting this game together is that actually the following year they had gotten the rights to do a RoboCop game to coincide with the motion picture that came out. And they essentially redid the sprites and changed some of the mechanics around to suit RoboCop, as opposed to, again, 1 to 2 guys in white sweatpants and a black tank top. There, now I have a knife. So now I can poke ninjas to death. And as much as I have played this game through the last 30 years, it's actually an arcade game I've never beaten. If I think the farthest I've ever gotten is... I want to say I've gotten like 3 or 4 levels in. Now the boss for this second level, being here on the top of a semi-truck, I should say, is actually really easy, provided you stand right about here. Because he will hop like this with those big, long blade arms he's got. But if you sit right here, you can usually pick him off. There we go. Now, Data East was actually an arcade company and a general electronics company that had been around for a long time. It started in 1976 and were in business until 2003, although really by the 90s they were out of the video game market as people understood. And when it came to the NES, their games were generally considered the lower end of the quality spectrum by comparison to Rare and Capcom and Konami and other suppliers. And it wasn't that the games were truly awful. I mean, they weren't like LJN games. But mainly it was just that the... Uh-oh, as I fell into the sewer. Didn't mean to do that. You have to think about it in terms of like what made the SNK such a Neo-Geo such a great system was that you got, near makes no difference, one-to-one ports of all their arcade games. And Data East just could not convert that. Like, one of my favorite early arcade games was a game called Ring King, which I touched on a little bit yesterday for Sports Saturday, where we played Fight Night Round 3. Hope you had a chance to check that out. And now we have to deal with a ninja who will separate out. And I gotta take out all versions of him. And find the one that is actually the boss. And because you can't block, it does make it really hard to avoid getting hit. But as I was saying, Ring King was one of my favorite early arcade games. And it's a straight up 2D boxing game. With a bit of a cartoonish element to it. And it's, you know, for its time in the early to mid 1980s, it came out just about the same time as the original Punch-Out. And then on the NES, it came out a little bit after Mike Tyson's Punch-Out was released. But when they converted it to the NES from the arcade, it just wasn't nearly as good. The graphic translation wasn't the same. And it just didn't have what you were looking for in the title. I would have loved to have been able to pick up his sword, by the way. And it bothered me that I can't. And what you're always hoping is that you can back him into a corner and go to work on him. But you end up taking a lot more damage than you're dishing out, which is not great. Oh, and I still got hit. Which means we have to start this all over again. But Data East did, along with video games, they did pinball games, and again, they also did a lot of consumer electronic stuff. Their first really big arcade game, though, was the original Burger Time, which came out in 1982, which was a fun game. And it was definitely a different kind of game, because you were a frantic burger chef trying to stop your ingredients from running amok and destroying your burger shop. Which, don't get me wrong, I mean, that sounds as weird as you could possibly think a video game would be. But the 1980s were, dare I say it, a simpler time. Alright, now we got to our friend the Green Ninja here. And it's a question of making him come to us. Alright, come over this side of the screen. And back over this way. And now we should have him. Ah, we finally got him. Now, my brain is telling me that this is the farthest I've ever gotten in this game, is to this forest. Oh, and now we have to deal with the fire ninjas. Those are the orange ones who will light themselves on fire. They will totally immolate themselves. And then run at you at high speed. Of course, I jumped down right into a shuriken. And we finally get the nunchucks. The nunchucks are far and away my favorite weapon in this game, because they've got range, they hit really hard. There, now we can lower this one down. There is another Data East fighting game which we will likely play at some point, and it was called Karate Champ. And it's as rudimentary a fighting game as you could think to play from the 1980s. Oh, they took me out. Okay. But for it was, and I'm not being hyperbolic in saying this, it was the Street Fighter of its time. And I'm not making a dent in this guy. And that's it, game over. So you only get so many continues to try and beat the game. But that, everybody, in a nutshell, is Bad Dudes or Dragon Ninja or Bad Dudes versus Dragon Ninja from 1989 for the Nintendo Entertainment System from Data East USA. Again, is it a great game? By modern standards, hardly. But for the time, it was everything you wanted in an 80s side-scrolling fighting platform game. You know, in that respect, it wasn't much different than Double Dragon. It wasn't that different than most fighting games of the day. But it took the tropes of the American fascination with Asian culture, Japanese culture, and especially everything that had to do with anything to do with ninjas in the 1980s. We wrung that rag until there was nothing left of it by the time the decade was over. So if you've never played it before, I mean, you can give it a visit. If your kung fu is better than mine, you can probably beat it in about half an hour to 45 minutes. I don't know particularly how many levels there are, but I do know that there are two different endings for the game. One for the American version and one for the Japanese version. So, you know, it is a bit of a challenge, but again, the pattern recognition and the limitations on the NES are such that it can be a frustrating game. But if you've liked this, and I hope you have, best way you can show it is to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and ring the bell to be notified for the latest content. I will tell you, we are starting up our playthrough this next week. I don't want to give away the title just yet, but you will know it when you see it. And I'm expecting that this one will run between 10 and 20 episodes at most. So it won't be a long run through, but it is a game that I am very much looking forward to revisiting. It's one I've played before, but it's one that most people haven't seen before, and that's the only hint I will give you. So, how you can also help the channel out is to spread the word about our Instagram page at Ronan's Retrocade and help get us to 100 subscribers as soon as we can. That way we can unlock the YouTube customization algorithm and make this channel bigger and better. And thank you to everybody who has subscribed in the last couple of weeks. I have seen the numbers go up. I do get alerts of that. We are now over 20 and approaching 30 subscribers, which is great. You got to start somewhere. So what better time to do it than now? And if there is a game you would like to see us feature from the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo, the Sega Master System, Sega Genesis, or Mega Drive, SNK, Neo-Geo, Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, or PlayStation 2, leave it in the comments below or drop me a line on Instagram, and it can be any game you want. As always, my name is Ronan. It's been great to spend this Sunday with you. Be safe, be well, happy gaming, and we will talk to you again soon when we get our next playthrough underway. Bye.